What's good, my people? Welcome into Buckets Action Network's daily NBA betting podcast. We're in the workshop Wednesday, NBA slate, and I got a couple of my boys with me. Michael Fiddle at Fiddle's Picks. Go check him out. And AC, the analytics capper. We are recording this live from our Tommy John home studio. Go pick up some of the gear. It is legit. The underwear to the pajamas to the shirts. All of it super comfy. You know how we get down. We give the play. We give the cap. We get you guys out of here. Michael Fiddle, give me your best bets for the Wednesday NBA slate.
So I'm going to go with both teams laying a 3.5. Give me the Grizzlies minus 3.5 and the Lakers minus 3.5.
AC, the analytics capper.
I'm going to co-sign that Lakers look. I like the Lakers here, 3.5, 4.5. It doesn't matter. I like the Lakers. And I'm also going to go and be on the Houston Rockets tomorrow night, minus 2.5 against the Nuggets.
Celtics-Raptors over 229, minus 110 for me. And also the Memphis Grizzlies team total over 119.5, minus 125. Here we go. We got a full slate of games here. I'm going to come to you first, Fiddle. Let's jump right into it. We got this is the most plays I've had on a pod in quite a while, so I'm excited to jump into these and break it down. We'll have the Tommy John Big Ballsy parlay for you guys at the end of this as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Fiddle, talk to me. The Lakers, tough squad to back. Hard team to get a beat on. Why are you looking at him in this spot?
Can I actually throw it to Albert first? Because this was he says he's jumping on my play and he's agreeing with me. The truth is it's the reverse, right? This was Albert coming in saying, I'm going to be on Lakers 3.5. And I was like, I completely agree. So let's let Albert answer this first and then I'll respond to him as well.
Yeah, I love the Lakers in this spot. Not only from a bounce back spot, they have lost the last 3 games. They were up against San Antonio at halftime, got crushed in that second half. But this more so is a scheduled loss for Miami. This is going to be their 6th game on this really long road trip. Clippers the game before, Lakers tomorrow night. That is the definition of the LA hangover. Miami, there's a lot of negative news there as well. I just think they want to go home. It's a long 6-game road trip. After that, they got to travel across country back to Miami and play Denver on a 3-game homestand. So I think just from a scheduling standpoint, it's really tough for Miami to get to this and get up for this game. I was looking at potentially a first half. Maybe they start off a little sleepy, but the Lakers are notorious in terms of slow starting and then, turning it on in the second half. So I'm just gonna trust the gut here with the full game play on the Lakers minus 3.5. When we started this podcast, it was 3.5. I think it's moved up to 4. Some outlets have it at 4.5. I'm not too worried about it as long as it stays within 2 possessions. And, coming off 3 straight losses, they're not a bad team at home. The Lakers are actually 12-6 at Crypto.com Center. So they're a pretty formidable team at home. And, at this point, mid-January, LeBron, AD, those guys have to actually start winning now. So they're only 20-17. They got to get on a run right now.
Take it away, Fiddle, because I'm very close to the Knicks. They're an impossible team to get a beat on. It seems like one night they are absolutely unstoppable. Next night they don't look like they want to go out there and compete at the highest level. We know the Lakers are dealing with the wildfires. Our thoughts are out with those folks. They look flat the last week. This is a game, as AC laid out, that Miami's going to want to look to try to get home, but it's just not that typical LA road trip with everything going on out there. But you both like it. You guys are both sharp. I respect both of your guys' vantage points. Fiddle, also talk me into the Lakers here.
Yeah, I'll do it from the Lakers side, right? Albert said this is from the Miami side on the end of a 6-game road trip. I'll take it from the Lakers side. It's been strong Lakers spots the past few games. And yes, they've lost their last 3, but it's not going to deter me. Like, I feel like a lot of people would come into this saying now Lakers are on the banned list or they're on the no bet list after, losing. They lost by 34 points in the last 14 minutes against the Spurs the other night. They were up 10 points with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and they would lose by 24. Like, that is a bottom 1% outcome of things that could happen. A few games prior, they played against the Mavericks without Luka, without Kyrie, without Gafford, and the Mavericks go Boston Celtics, and they shoot 50% from three, and they make 19 of them, and they win the 3-point battle, and they just crush. So it's like shooting variance, a 1% blip. So I'm not playing into any of that stuff. From the Lakers' perspective, it's really a rest situation, right? LeBron has played one game in the last week or so. Anthony Davis played one game in the last week or so. We have the cleanest injury report we will get on their side. I definitely think when Lakers are rested, you could play into them, and then you get a team that's on the opposite end of that spectrum. I think this is a strong Lakers spot, and I'm like holding myself back from only betting one unit on this and not letting myself go harder, because I've done it the past 2 Lakers games, and I'm tempted to do it again.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that they've been getting rest, both the squads out in LA. When we talk about the Lakers, off of 2 days rest, they've had 2 days rest. They've had more than, I guess they've played, like you mentioned, one game in the past like week or so. But on 2 days rest, they've had 7 games. They're 4-3. On 3 days rest, they're 2-0. So they're a combined 6-3 when they get 2 or more days of rest. It is a Los Angeles Lakers spot. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It's one of those spots for me where it's Lakers or nothing. They've just been so inconsistent that it's just really tough to get behind, them and what's going on. But hey, on the flip, Miami has played a little better without Jimmy Butler in the fold, but Bam, down year. Like, they haven't been the model of consistency either. A lot to lift for Tyler Hero over there on the offensive side as well. All right, the fellas are on the Lakers. All right, AC, let's talk about the Rockets laying a couple 2.5 in this spot on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Denver is playing right now. They're killing. They're boat racing the Mavericks in Dallas. But they do have to head back to Denver tonight, late night, long flight. Elevation back to Denver to play Houston. To me, the rest advantage is one thing, right? Houston's been there a day before the Nuggets, but I just think Houston is a deeper team. When we get to the bench, I like Houston's bench a lot more than Denver's bench. Denver's very top heavy with Jokic, obviously, Jamal Murray or Russell Westbrook, whoever shows up that night as the guard. But I like Houston. I like the coaching, obviously, and they're on a really good streak right now. They won 4 straight, 5 of their last 6. It was a really unlucky ATS loss the last time they played, which was against the Grizzlies, -2.5. They only won by 2. I think they get it done in Denver. I'm not worried about the elevation. I'm not worried about fatigue. I just think it's a younger team, a hungrier team, and a team that wants these regular season games more than a team like Denver.
Fiddle, what do you think?
I think it's tough to bet against we're recording this as the Nuggets are playing against the Mavericks right now, and it's just so hard. They're blowing them out, but just so hard to know how these guys are going to play on the second night of a back-to-back. Like, is Murray going to go? Is Gordon, who's recently back, is he going to play? Is he going to come off the bench? Is Jokic, who's been dealing with the sickness? So I just find it hard to bet for or against the Nuggets on the second night of a back-to-back, given the way that their injury designations have been this season and as of the last few weeks. That being said, I think the Rockets are flat out the better team at this point. If I'm going power rankings, I do have them power rated ahead. So if you're betting a -2.5, I don't think it's going to change drastically if those guys do play. I think it's probably priced closer to the guys being in, and then you'd also have probably outs live, outs in more pregame markets, type like that. So I don't mind it, but I'm not going to bet it myself.
Yeah, this is their first time playing this year, which I think is interesting. They haven't played the Nuggets and the Rockets all year, and
they didn't play in 2024 either. They played all of their games in the front end of the 23-24 season in 23, and then haven't played at all, and then they start up again in the 24-25 seasons playing in 25. Just a weird schedule pick with that one.
That is a really interesting schedule.
I was looking at it before. I'll invoke some LiAngelo. I was like, am I tweaking when I'm looking at this this game log?
I'll add one more thing in terms of the schedule. Houston, we talked about, this is a schedule loss for Miami and LA. Denver's actually flying out of Dallas tonight after the game to play one game in Denver. and then flying to the aforementioned Miami Heat to play them in a day. So it's almost like it's almost a detriment for them having to fly back west home to then fly back east the very next day. So I don't know. There's a lot of human aspects to it. It's a long season. Everybody's stressed out about the wildfires. Most of these players, their second homes or their primary homes are in LA. So I mean, they're all being affected as well. And this schedule, this travel is just really weird. I think the Rockets are just more motivated. I think they, again, like I said earlier, they want to win these regular season games, whereas Denver just wants to peak at the right time.
Yeah, Denver on no rest, 5-3 ATS, solid number. But it's interesting when you're on a back-to-back and then you get that a lot of the stars end up playing 32, 33 minutes because they end up blowing out the night before. It always puts an extra little dynamic. This is an interesting spot. Houston's been awesome all year long. They know their identity. They know how they want to approach games. And the reason Denver's boat racing Dallas, as you mentioned, AC, is because Jamal Murray is just absolutely liquid, lava hot in that game. If he can't carry that over, which he shouldn't be defensively against Thompson and the rest of those guys for Houston, it's going to be a tougher sled. It's an interesting spot. I have no beat on it. That's one of the tougher games on the schedule, in my opinion. Let's hope the Houston Rockets cash out that number.
One last thing, Sean. Yeah, one last thing for those who are, worried about Denver on a second night of back-to-back. We're only worried about Denver in terms of, are they going to sit their stars, right? Jokic or Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon coming out of injury. That means you're potentially going to get good CLV in this if they sit them out, right? So -2.5 right now could be -4, 4.5. I'm not a big CLV guy in general in the regular season, but that if you are potentially getting a lot of value tonight.
All right, Fiddle, I'm coming back to you. Let's talk about Memphis -3.5 versus the San Antonio Spurs. I was looking at this. This was my first play out. I ended up deciding to go with the team total instead here. Talk to me about why you're laying the 3.5. It was 3 like 30 minutes ago before we hopped on. I wish I could have caught it there. It's 3.5 at the moment across the board everywhere I can see. Talk to me about Grizzlies laying the 3.5 versus the San Antonio Spurs, who a lot of people are taking a little bit of a liking to of late.
Yeah, I just think this is a Memphis spot coming off of the loss against Houston. They've played a bunch of close games recently. They beat the Wolves. They lost to the Rockets twice. So they played a lot of these physical matchups. Now they get the Spurs, which is more of a finesse matchup. I really like how the Grizzlies have 5 guys who can all put the ball on the deck and take it to the cup. So like when you're going against a team like Wemby, you need to be able to play from different play styles. You need to not just funnel through certain matchups and then let him be a help defense roaming wherever and he's going to destroy you. You need to have your guys who can attack from the perimeter. Jaren Jackson Jr. will literally get his shoulder low to the ground and start dribbling to the cup and like try and initiate the action himself. So all of the Grizzlies guys will do that. They play incredibly high tempo. I think it's a really good matchup coming off of a loss for Memphis. You said the market has even agreed with that sentiment, starting to move from 3 to 3.5. And we look at like Wembanyama's game log against bigs of the Jaren Jackson, of the Anthony Davis ilk. I know he just had that come from behind win against Anthony Davis, but we just said it was probably a bottom 1% outcome for the Spurs to go crazy like that in the last 14 minutes of the game. Prior to that, he was 0-4 against AD, and he's had a losing record against Jaren Jackson Jr. So these are the type of bigs that can kind of play with him because they could play inside out as well, and they're just like also 7 feet freaks of nature. So Wemby's advantage does not loom as large in this spot. And then you have no answer for Ja Morant. Like Chris Paul is just over the hill in terms of his defense that he can handle that kind of guard. So Ja's been starting to go crazy. He's getting back up to full health. I think this is a strong Memphis spot. And definitely the game of the night that you want to be watching on League Pass or wherever. Like Memphis, Ja Morant versus Wemby. I could not be more excited for anything.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'll get into your cap and I'll get your thoughts, AC, just because we're aligned here, Michael Fiddle. I agree with everything you just laid out. I think it was very well put. And I want to just add some more color here. I'm on the Grizzlies. Team total over 119.5, -125 in the market as we record this on Tuesday night. I flat out been really impressed with Morant and the Grizzlies offense all year, but especially of late. They put up 115 versus the Rockets. Then they put up 127 in Minnesota. Nobody does that. Flat out, period, point blank. Nobody goes to Minnesota and hangs 127. That was the second most points they've allowed all season long. The Knicks did go to Minnesota and score 133 in an anomaly where a couple dudes went crazy for the Knicks. But then they back it right up, and then they score 118 against the Rockets in Houston. That's very difficult to do. So against same squad, but two really good defenses, they had a lot of offensive success and then a huge game in Minnesota. Sohan is out for the Spurs. Defensive rating with Sohan on the floor is 112. It ticks up to 114. I was just picking and choosing, but I swapped off the on-off with Sohan for Castle. It goes to like 114. But the best defensive lineup the Spurs have is with Sohan on the floor. Per dunks and threes, Spurs have played the 20th ranked offensive strength of schedule to date in the NBA this year. Their defensive rating should be better. Doesn't reflect that. I think it's 13 or 14 right now in the NBA. If you're playing still towards the bottom of the league offenses, I would expect them to be closer to like the top 10-ish range when it comes to playing D. So I really like this spot overall for the Memphis Grizzlies to have offensive success. And I don't think the San Antonio Spurs are going to be able to keep up. That's why I don't mind laying the 3.5, but I'm keying in on the team total. Another reason, because the Grizzlies, first in pace in the NBA. I think Fiddle laid it out. They're going to be elated that they don't have to play a rough and tumble Rockets or Timberwolves team. The Grizzlies are number one team to the team total over. They're 27-13 to the over on the team total. When they unload on folks, they unload on offense. And I think the Spurs are just what the doctor ordered after seeing the Rockets and the Timberwolves the last week. I think they score 120, 125 in this spot. Me and Fiddle are aligned there. Any thoughts, AC, on the Grizz Spurs?
I don't have any thoughts on the side, to be honest with you. I think Memphis is obviously the way better team. It's also another, and I don't know why I'm so focused on the schedule tonight, but it's another weird quirk. They're actually going to play again. So they're playing Wednesday night, and then they stay there in San Antonio and play again on Friday night. So back to back. Those situations, again, I agree with Fiddle and I agree with you. I think not having Sochan is also a big deal. There's no way Chris Paul is going to be guarding Ja Morant, by the way. It's probably going to be Steph Castle.
No, but they'll matchup hunt him for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can't hide Chris Paul against that Memphis team because everybody.
And Desmond Bane will go out, and that's the whole purpose of having 5 guys that could all attack.
Yep, all 5 guys have an offensive game on that roster, including Wells. But one thing I would be a little worried about is because Memphis is playing the inferior team back-to-back games, they might, sleepwalk and want to get one of them and then barely win. So that's something. Maybe it's a good spot to maybe jump in the second half or fade them, things like that. Just another caveats for you to think about.
And this is also one of those spots. The Spurs first game home after a little road trip. You got to pick up your dry cleaning. You got to connect with the lady. You got to walk the dog. Next thing you know, Spurs are the Memphis Grizzlies have scored 65 points in the first half, and we're on our way to covering the number and the team total by the time you put the dog collar away and wake up and you realize Ja Morant has 30. So I really like this spot for Memphis. I think they show up in a major way and are just happy to get a little freedom of movement on offense against the Spurs' softer defensive unit. All right, my second play. Let's go with a total here. Celtics-Raptors over 229, minus 110 in the market as we record this Tuesday night, 11:28 p.m. The Boston Celtics have trouble defending pace. I've talked about this before on buckets. The Boston Celtics have 11 losses. 8 of the 11 losses are against teams that are currently top 10 in pace or were top 10 in pace when they played them. I'm talking about the Warriors on that caveat. Earlier in the year, the Warriors were top 10 in pace when they beat the Boston Celtics. The other 3 are the Magic. They're tough as nails and beat everyone. So, I mean, they're just a tough team to play against. The Sixers L was a fluke. You could just write that one off, flush the film down the toilet, throw it in the garbage. And then the Kings is the other outlier. But the Kings have finally made it, fellas, to the 2025 season. They've been playing a lot better their last 10 games. They're 7-3 straight up. And guess what? Over that 10-game span where they're 7-3 straight up, they've been playing with a lot more pace like they're accustomed to playing and like they have played when they had success in the last few seasons. They're 10th in pace over that 10-game stretch. A few other points. Familiarity. This is the third time these teams will be playing, but the first time in Toronto, where, by the way, the pace gets a full 3 possessions quicker for the Raptors when they play at home. I know what you guys are thinking. Last time the Boston Celtics played the Raptors, they held them to 71 points. But no RJ Barrett, and it was a revenge spot for the Celtics. They lost to the Raptors at home. This was them seeing them again in their building. Once again, they absolutely blew their doors off and won by 50. So that's the element for that. Turnovers and defending the three. Toronto turns the ball over a ton, 24th in turnover percentage. There will be some easy buckets for the Boston Celtics. They're also 24th in three-point percentage allowed. That is a nightmare when we're talking about playing the Boston Celtics. Last 3 games, the Raptors are allowing 43% from deep. Last but not least, Raptors are just what the doctor ordered for the Boston Celtics. You guys are watching the same games as me. Boston hasn't looked that good offensively. Last 5 games, they're 19th in offense. They've been struggling a bit, 3-2 straight up in their last 5. They had to scratch and claw to beat the Pelicans. The Celtics, just like the Memphis Grizzlies, are going to be happy to see a softer defense. They're going to hang a big number here on the Raptors. And I think the Raptors are able to have some success offensively at home, getting up and down the floor where Boston has struggled. So I think it's a 125, 112 type game, and this goes over. This is in the 230s for me. Fiddle, what do you think about the total?
I don't mind it at all. I think it's just well priced. There is a sharp Vegas book hanging at 230 right now, while there's 229 and 229.5 pretty much everywhere else. So early indication that you might be right towards the direction and the way this might move. I really like that stat about the Boston losing to high-paced teams. That's something that I'm going to hold on to. I had not too much of an opinion on the play, but I really like that plug of that stat.
Yeah. Take a look. I mean, every loss they've had, vast majority of the time, the team's just getting out.
They always struggle with the Atlanta Hawks. It's just like you're very right. When I go back and just through the rhetorical memory bank of it definitely lines up.
Yeah, no doubt. Fiddle, or not Fiddle, AC, what do you think of the total? Over 229. Raptors are horrid, but not as horrid at home as a lot of people think they are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sean. I honestly was paying attention to every single word you were saying, and I think what the too long, didn't read version of it is you're fading the Boston Celtics defense, right? You know the pace is going to be there. You know they're going to get a lot of threes up, potentially score at 125 again, but you're expecting the Raptors to also get up and down, get buckets and shoot threes, and I like that look a lot. And in terms of the side, you're right. The Raptors are just 1-18 away from Toronto, but they're a respectable 8-13 at home. So I kind of lean Toronto here because Boston, another scheduling thing, has an interesting thing coming up. They're playing 3 teams that they just lost to the previous games. So they're playing Orlando, who they just lost to. They're playing Atlanta, who they just lost to, and then they're traveling out west to play the Warriors, who they lost to back in January as well. So it's very interesting. Maybe they look ahead at those teams in revenge spots. So I do like Toronto to score. I like the look here in terms of the over. I would lean on the side of Toronto as well.
Toronto 13-8 ATS at home this season. Everybody just thinks they're dog shit. They just bet against them wherever they're playing. And Toronto plays a little harder than people are realizing. Also, one point that you made, AC, and I wanna bounce another nugget here off of that. You mentioned fading the Celtics defense. That's part of it. And I think overall, Boston, too much for my liking, kind of gets sucked into how the other team wants to play the game. So it's like, oh, you guys want to just run up and down and shoot threes? Fine. Like, we're the best at that. We'll do that. They could get tons of stops. But it seems like for me, sometimes they get in these high-paced games, like I mentioned, and like the vast majority of their losses against these high-paced teams, and they'll just fall into the trap of, all right, I guess you guys want to run. We'll just run then. And sometimes it doesn't work out for them. I think that is where I don't expect them to lose, but I do expect Toronto to be able to score more points than people think in their building, and it pushes over that 229 number.
Yeah, there's a very, very interesting clip of Jason Tatum. He was mic'd up, right? It was before the game. He and Derek White were hanging out, and Jason Tatum, this is before they won the championship, right? This is before they even deserved to even say this, but Tatum was already saying, we had to go through preseason, we had to go through the regular season, all-star game, first round, all that. So that whole mantra, that whole mindset is true, right? If your leader is already thinking, this is just a regular season game, I think the rest of the team also feels the same way. They are still the champions from a top, starting five, fully healthy. They are stacked, and they are still the best five in the NBA, even with the Cavs. So I like that, there's going to be spots to fade Boston this year. Whereas last year, if you guys remember the second half of last year, Boston was covering every single number, dropping 130 on everybody. So this is a great season for handicappers and bettors to find situational spots, potentially like tomorrow, where they have to travel into Toronto. One last thing I want to say, and it's not as prominent as it was during COVID, but traveling to Toronto is still different from any other city because it's international. You still have to go through customs. You still have to add, 4 or 5, facets or aspects to just traveling to that city. And so that's why I think Toronto has somewhat a home court advantage. If they only had a great team, I think they would really, really be a tough out in the playoffs. But obviously, they're still a couple years out.
We mentioned at the top of the show that we're coming to you from our Tommy John home studios, and that's because great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. I own a bunch of the Tommy John stuff. They sent me some stuff. I try it on. I wear it. I'm wearing some right now. It's the most comfortable stuff out. I bought a couple things for my family members over the Christmas holiday, passed them out. They're worth the money. Very comfortable underwear, T-shirts, sleeping stuff. Go check them out. I wouldn't lie to you. I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't think that was the case. Remember, when you're truly comfortable, you do everything better, and that includes betting. So if you love the Buckets podcast, if you love this crew, AC, the Analytics Capper, Michael Fiddle, Sean Little, you'll love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohns.com/buckets. That's 25% at TommyJohn.com/buckets. And since we're talking Tommy John, let's get into the Tommy John Ballsy Parlay. We just peeled off a couple of our games that we just handicapped for you, put them together. Lakers, -3.5. Grizzlies, -3.5. Celtics-Raptors, over 229, +595 out in the market. Remember, the quick slip links are going to be in the podcast and video description. Every play, that Ballsy Parlay will be there, the Tommy John Ballsy Parlay. Our picks individually will all be in there. If you want to just click on those, take you directly to a slip where you can wager, be my guest, and check that out. To recap, AC, the Analytics Capper, Rockets, -2, -2.5. Get the best number you can. Lakers, -3.5. Michael Fiddle also likes the Lakers, -3.5. And then Memphis, -3.5 versus the Spurs. I am on the Celtics-Raptors, over 229, -110. Grizzlies, team total, over 119.5, -125. For Michael Fiddle, for AC, the Analytics Capper, I am your host, Sean Little. Until next time, which will be tomorrow, let's get buckets, baby.